Hey, friends. Welcome to the Self Love Strong podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Elaine Hicks, a free diver instructor who has spent the last 2 decades helping others reclaim safety in their bodies. Her groundbreaking work explores the intersection of nervous system science, breath hold breathing, and emotional resilience, eliminating how we adapt, survive, and eventually learn to thrive in the face of complex stress. Elaine discovered freediving not only as a sport, but as a lifeline during the COVID pandemic. Shutdowns, what began as a quiet rebellion against burnout, became a hero's journey of deep transformation. Today, she teaches others how to meet their inner world with presence, not pressure, using the water as both metaphor and medicine. Her writing and research have resonated with freedivers and therapists alike. In her recent Medium series, A Glimpse into Trauma Informed Freediving, Elaine shares powerful insights on recovery, interception, and self trust. Her upcoming book expands on this work, weaving her personal story with science and somatic practice to explore what freediving taught her about trauma, healing, and adaptation. Welcome to the show,
Thank you.
Elaine. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited too. When I saw your call to action on Facebook, I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. I have to jump on that show for sure.
Well, yes. Truly a pleasure having you here all the way from Hawaii.
Yes. And if you haven't come yet, you gotta come visit. It's a beautiful place. A little crowded sometimes, but if you want to get some real intense rest, self care, switch how you want to focus on your self love. This would be a good place to come
Whew, I'm going to have to take that invitation and I'm going.
to.
So, Elaine, can you share how you first encountered free diving in the
Mhm.
pandemic and what drew you to it as a form of healing?
It's a very interesting story because my first experiences in the ocean as a child overseas in Europe was playing in the waves at the shore break. Never going out super far, not diving down deep, nothing like that. And so when I moved to Hawaii, you would think maybe automatically, she's a water baby. She's always in there. She's surfing. She's diving. No. I was the beach lover, the sun, laying in the sun, playing in the waves with my kids, just taking it easy. And in 2017, a friend of mine said, let's go snorkeling. And I had a very small panic attack. And it was embarrassing because I was like, wait a minute. I love the ocean. I've always been called to the ocean. But I got really scared when it was time to shift my breathing from nostril breathing to mouth breathing, which is kind of a clue that I circled back to years later in my research. So, kind of dealt with that. We made it through, and we would go snorkeling for like 30 minutes at a time, rush out to see the fish, and rush back in. Nothing long. It wasn't actually relaxing at all the way we were doing it. And during COVID, though, we were shut down very fast here on Oahu. We weren't allowed to go anywhere. We weren't allowed to do anything unless it was for fishing or maybe walking. We weren't even allowed to walk on the beach. You had to go directly and get in the water, and that was it. You couldn't sit. You couldn't leave your stuff. There was police patrolling the beach all the time. It was a very interesting experience. So she calls me up and says, I heard there's this place where dolphins come. So I think we should go. And I was like, I think this is crazy, but let's do it. So we had all been working hard online. Everybody had switched to telework, and staring at screens for that much amount of time every single day is not good for us. But that's how we work now, and it's actually very convenient. But that doesn't mean it's healthy, right? So we're there at 6:30 in the morning. As soon as the sun comes up over the mountain, we're in the water. I got these teeny little fins that can't do anything for me. And we're out there cruising, and she grabs my arm and turns me around, and there's a pod of like 50 dolphins coming at me. And when you're in that kind of immersive experience, COVID doesn't matter, pandemics don't matter, nothing matters except you your sense of who you are in that moment, and your connection to the environment, those animals that you've never ever spent time with before. You don't know who these guys are. I mean, they're dolphins, and all of our science and all the stories say they're the good guys. But my body responded like, no, these are the bad guys. I'm in danger. And it was an incredible, awe-inspiring moment. That was the true time. That was the life-changing moment of my brain finally stopped talking to me, and my body said, "Hello, we might have some things to talk about, but right now, I just want you to hear yourself breathing and focus on what's going on around you." And in freediving, I learned to disconnect from all the noise and all the distractions of life and find quiet in myself. Now, someone might think, oh, so that must have been awesome. No, it wasn't. Because the way I grew up, silence and stillness meant there was danger coming. And if you were quiet and silent and still, then you dropped your guard. So it was confusing to be in this experience in the water where your body has this protective mechanism called the dive response. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's this beautiful gift from our creator, from our nervous system that protects us from drowning. It's called the mammalian dive response or reflex because it's automatic when we get in the water. And this is why we feel so relaxed when we spend time in the ocean. Our heart rate drops. Our spleen is like shooting out extra oxygen and hemoglobin into your blood to give you conservation support. But what I found from those experiences is that therapeutically we can leverage that dive reflex and take it out of the water and do some more work when we get out on our self-care, our self-love, our journey of healing and recovery. So that was the connection for me, but it just took me like 3 years to figure out the science behind it because I just didn't want to go talk about it without having the evidence. So those were those moments early in 2020 that I learned how to be inside of my body in stillness without having to take care of someone else, but just myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Man, it's such a powerful story. When I think of Hawaii, I think of a paradise, somewhere so beautiful. And to hear that you couldn't even sit on the beach during that time is like, wow. I mean, you think about you can't sit in the beach. I mean, like almost that paradise has been taken away from you, and they're telling you to just get in the water. Like that's just it's those things. It's those moments when I think like, man, if you told somebody that, they'd be like, no way that happened.
Yeah, it was so shut down.
I love that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. You're gonna say it was so shut down. Yeah.
Well, I think we're having a little buffering connection issue here, but yeah, so it was so shut down that they had the police were like on these ATVs to come to the beach to come and tell people not to sit there, and it just was so counter to everything. Like sitting outside is not a bad thing for you, actually. Like you should be breathing fresh air, and just the amount of control. And I don't want to. They were doing what they thought they needed to do to protect us, so I don't want to like speak up against the government by any means. But it was very constrictive and limiting, and so like you get scared. Like you park. Well, actually, we weren't even allowed to park at some of our beaches. So we had to park and then like walk with all of our stuff. And then of course, if you're too close to each other, you're breaking those rules. So it was quite an adventure just to get in the water. And then you were like literally sprinting across because you didn't want to make the police mad at all.
Yeah.
So it was weird, stressful. And then you're like finally in the water. You're just like, oh, thank God, I can breathe now. Literally. Yeah. I
really love during that stressful time how you found that place to to find your peace in that challenge. I think that's such a powerful message. Like, you found that space for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think many times we all find ourselves in that quiet moment wondering, do we really want to sit with ourselves? But I love, like you said, like, it's challenging when everything's quiet. You think about our world, we have technology, something's always dinging on your phone, somebody's always trying to call you to sell you something or knocking on your door, right? So how does your background with trauma therapy influence your perspective on free diving?
How did trauma therapy influence my perspective on freediving? I think we have to flip that around a little. So
Oh, yeah.
because to me, it's like they both feed each other. There's no, like, the more I'm learning about trauma physiology, complex stress physiology, so not just mental health here, we're talking about the real reactions of the body to stressful events. Heart rate, breath rate, your stomach hurting, not being able to eat or eating too much or being so tired all the time. So what happened was I took this complex post-traumatic stress disorder certification course. And they were talking about the nervous system and the real long-term impacts of like adverse childhood experiences, the things that happen to us growing up, and how those affect our health in our 40s, in our 50s, in our 60s. And I saw how freediving could be an answer, but you don't have to dive to get the benefits. So I know a lot of people are landlocked, right? And they might not have access. I'm lucky I live here. But what I learned was it comes down to your breath and how you engage with your body in a very different way. And you really touched on something so important when you said, someone's always trying to sell you something, they're knocking on your door, there's a distraction. And what nature and freediving has taught me is, if you can duplicate the conditions of nature at home or anywhere else, you can find these pockets, then maybe you don't need those distractions as much anymore, because the distractions are keeping us from, the healing process. Because the healing process also it's hard, it's painful, and we don't want to go back and revisit things, and you don't always necessarily have to do that. But if you've had adverse events in your life, I don't want to say it's traumatic, because there's so much in that language that is nuanced, right?
Yeah.
I think we've all had adverse events happen to us, and it causes us to build up defense mechanisms. And what freediving and trauma therapy taught me was there's different ways we can get at reducing those intense maladaptive or unhealthy coping mechanisms. Maybe we've been drinking too much, eating too much, gambling, shopping. How many shark tooth necklaces do you really need? Like, you know what I mean? So this intersection between the two really started showing me all the places in life that we avoid ourselves. But in the water, or hiking, or maybe even in golf, or bowling, or swimming, or dance, you can't always escape yourself. Your body's going to demand that you come back to it, and we see that with health problems. That's the demand. Does that make sense?
Yes, a lot. That's so powerful what you said there. Like you said, we're like all trying to kind of escape something, and nature really allows you to find that safe, quiet space to really be with yourself. I think it's like you said, we're always distracted. So finding those places, and I love something you said there, is if you don't have that environment, like you can't get to that nature, that water, you can build that place around you. I think that's a power that a lot of us give away. We don't really think about. We just accept our environment for how it is, but not doing like what you said, building that environment for yourself. That's so awesome.
It's important that you have somebody to teach you how to do that, and to have access to the information how to do that. Maybe you didn't know you could do that. Like, it's an option for you. So I spent 2.5 months out of the water. I had an ear infection. And what I learned was I was really depending on freediving to keep myself, as we say, sane. And so then I had, well, it was almost 90 days actually, where I could not literally get my ear wet. I couldn't even, like, when I showered, I couldn't get it wet. It was so infected. Yeah. And it made me stop and think that how do I duplicate this at home? So I would get ice packs and put them on my chest or the back of my neck, and I would do the same breathing that I would do when I was getting ready for a free dive. And I went and found the science to prove, like, why does this work? And so if you've ever been to the hospital having heart problems, they'll put your face in ice cold water because they're activating what I told you, that dive response that we all have, that puts your body in such a massive state of calm. Yeah, so you can create this at home with the right breathing practice, and if you use some cold water, cold washcloths. What do we do when some people are very upset? We always tell them, wash your hands and face. So we get that reflex going to help people to start to calm down. And for some people, maybe they don't want to get in the water. Maybe it's finding a green space. Green spaces like parks or hiking and walks and things can also wake up those parts of the brain that bring in that deep sense of calm for people. So
yes, wow, that's so awesome. So powerful, so powerful. I love that you said, like you said, there's so many people like you out there that are teaching people how to build those environments, and that it's not something that's natural, but it's a learned thing. I think many times we find ourselves in a situation we feel stuck, but number one, we're not asking for help, but number two, we're not realizing that it's a learned process, which is so powerful.
Yeah, I grew up never thinking I would ever go to therapy, and honestly, I did not want to be a therapist, but that was the call for me in my life. Yeah, I ran from it for a long time. So until that's a whole nother podcast. What brought me to therapy, or being a therapist rather. But I have my own therapist too, and culturally, this wasn't okay. You don't tell people you have problems. You don't admit you're having a rough time. I grew up in a military household. You're supposed to be resilient. You're supposed to be able to count on yourself. You need to have, this is not how we raised you. And that doesn't run in our family. We don't do that kind of thing. And so it does run counterculture. Before we started recording, we talked about how maybe the greatest act of self-love you could have for yourself is going to talk to someone, not because you're broken or you need to be fixed, but it's so nice to have someone who can just listen to you and reflect your patterns back and say, hey, have you thought about your blood pressure being so high is tied to X, Y, and Z? And then seeing those light bulbs kind of go, oh, okay, and it's not always that simple, but it can be. When you have the right person, therapist kind of connection. So that's the other part about the water in nature is it levels the playing field. We all show up the same. We really do. We all show up the same, and it's like it's just always there for us if we need it. And if you live in the city, that's also a little bit of a challenge, right? But I know in Texas, there's a lot of big open spaces. Yeah. And depending on the city, there's a lot of neighborhoods with beautiful ponds and parks. I have a friend who lives in Sugar Land, and I love driving through her neighborhood because there's all kinds of structures that have been built into the property. It's beautiful, but I'm like, can anybody come and walk through here? I'm wondering. So, yeah.
Yes. They're very fortunate. We do have some great open plains here in Texas and national parks. Mm-hmm. But I love how you said that, finding that stuff. I never thought about nature being that neutral ground for us, where we all have an opportunity to show up as we are when we find a space like that. So awesome.
Yeah, we can also find it in different sports or activities. Because the other part about freediving that's so important in the kind of recovery process or any process is that you make friends. You find a group of people who have the same interest as you, because in freediving we never go alone. You always need a dive buddy. And so there's this sense of community connection that's baked in to the process as well. And I think that's reflected in a lot of other community groups and healing practices as well.
That is powerful. So how does that breath hold diving facilitate that deeper understanding of one's internal state? Like how does that, really holding that, that diving facilitate that understanding of our internal state? How does that?
Yeah. So breath hold diving is when you don't use a scuba tank, just in case anybody's wondering about that. So no tanks. There's no tanks here. It's just you, your fins, mask, snorkel, weight belt, you're going. Really long fins too, not those teeny ones I said before. They are 70 centimeters long, our fins, which is like 36 inches, maybe 34 inches. Really long.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful to put all your gear on and walk into the water. It's an incredible experience. But so we take a full inhale after 2 minutes of preparation. So the preparation is you're face down, snorkel in your mouth. So you're breathing through your mouth, you have your mask on, and you're breathing like as if you were going to go to sleep. We call that like tidal breathing. It's the breathing you do when you're not thinking about breathing. The breathing that you've been doing as we've been talking, as you've just been sitting here listening. That's tidal breathing. Yeah? We do that for 2 minutes. Yeah, you're just putting your body into this relaxed state. And by the way, the water is touching your face. It's holding you and supporting you. And it's activating that dive response I talked about. So your heart rate drops. You take your final inhale and you dive down. And what happens is the water puts pressure on your body. So your heart rate keeps dropping. Your body's going through 12 adaptation processes to keep you safe. And what that causes inside of us is this deep relaxation. But at the same time, for a lot of people, it can cause something that we call the urge to breathe. Because we're not supposed to hold our breath, right? We have to train ourselves to hold our breath. So when you hold your breath, your oxygen levels stay very steady for like up to 3.5 minutes for most people. It just doesn't feel good. But on this dive, when you get the urge to breathe, it feels a lot like panic or anxiety, or it feels like heat in your gut. It feels like something's wrong. And that's the job of carbon dioxide, is to tell you, hey, it's time to breathe. And as freedivers, we learn how to adapt to that physiological sign. And when I started studying that, what I found is people who have anxiety or a lot of adverse events in their past or depression, they don't breathe very well. And so they are living in states of elevated carbon dioxide in their body because they're not breathing properly. And so breath hold diving taught me that day-to-day life, if we're breathing better, then maybe we're not as anxious or as tense or as reactive to stress, if that makes sense. So the breath work that I learned in freediving, when I started doing it at home, whenever I would get mad or lose my temper or stuck in Hawaii traffic, which is a nightmare. It can take you an hour to go 20 miles. I noticed I wasn't as reactive to things. And so they gave me more clues onto how can we use freediving practices as a way to reconnect with ourselves and heal our bodies.
Wow. That is That is, uh, man, just hearing the free diving where when I realized you said you had no tank on, I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of fun. You don't. It's less gear, so you don't have to carry 100 pounds literally down into the water with you, uh, because that tank of air makes you more buoyant. So you're like a cork, and then you have to wear more weight so you can sink. So that's a benefit of freediving, and you have more interactions with the animals because you're not making all this noise. And you're not releasing bubbles all the time. I mean, your time is limited, of course, to your capability and your ability to kind of withstand the CO2, because CO2 starts talking to you sometimes right away, and you have to have a conversation back with it and say, you know what, I'm literally fine. I can hold my breath for another minute, sir. Let me keep going, or 30 seconds or whatever that is. So it teaches us how to deal with distress, or tension. Because underwater, you cannot have a tense body. You have to let everything go. And the softer you are, the more powerful you are, the longer you can stay. So you can't resist it. That's a huge life lesson, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That is so powerful. I would never think, I mean, you think about how we are just in society, everything, like you said, we're always on or in a reactive state. But I love how you said, like, when you immerse yourself, you're going to have those voices that are going to still tell you that this is something new. You should be afraid. But I love how you said you're more powerful when you just let go. I think would you say that's one of those, the power of immersing yourself back into nature? It gives you that opportunity to just really let go and just be.
It's incredible. I mean, just thinking about laying on the water right now, my whole body might soften again. So just laying on the surface and breathing with the snorkel, of course, you're not just laying face down in the water, right? Unless that's what you want to do, but don't do that. You have the water's holding you, like I said. Finally, there is something without judgment. It's not a person. It's holding you, and you can let all of your weight go, all of your whole body. You can just let it go, and you're not, unless you're 100% muscle or at least only 3% body fat. You're not going to sink. Yeah, I have a couple of friends who are they're natural sinkers, but they're literally all muscle. If you're a woman, you're not going to sink like that, okay? Your body has buoyancy panels built in, which is your what in the rear. So, like, it's going to hold you up. And it just laying there and having the ability just to float and drop your shoulders and release your glutes and let your legs go and just completely, like, just sink into it and still float is... I can't do that in a therapy office. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So literally let go of everything. And that's not to say you're not going to grab it back when gravity hits you when you get out of water and you walk back up the hill to your car. But for that time, you have, like, respite. And for a lot of trauma survivors, they really need that space to not have to interact with their body that way. They can interact with their body in a new way. It's softness, not that tension, not the need to always have to perform for other people and take care of other people. And that's how freediving shifted how I started looking at trauma, is or how we survive past the responses that we built up. Is I see a lot of, especially women, coming into the freediving space, and that's the first time they've ever encountered the ability to be soft in their own body without having to protect themselves.
Wow.
And sometimes it's met with a lot of tears and joy, like the kind of joy that isn't always comfortable. And then some grief and sorrow that why haven't I ever had this in my life before? Other people meet it with resistance, and they're like, what the heck is happening? It's not safe for me to be this quiet. So so being a facilitator or like a conduit for that for people has been fascinating. And then pulling that data and putting it back into the dry therapy work, it's helping me to help more people find that softness without ever having to get in the water. Because not everybody wants to free dive. Let's be honest. Not everybody wants to swim and get in the water. It's a lot of physical effort. So I feel like my mission has shifted to include all the other people who don't want to get in the water, and how can they get benefits from that same kind of thought process.
Yes, that's so powerful. That's so awesome that you're doing that. Discuss the, listening to the body signals during both therapy and free diving, the benefit of just really listening to your body in those moments.
Any moment. So then we take it out of free diving, we take that listening, and that listening skill everyone has. It's your eighth sense. So we can see, hear, smell, taste. We also have this superpower called interoception. And that's the ability to listen to your body. Interoception. Eighth superpower, everybody's got it. And it's how we listen to our physiology and make the right changes to bring us back to a baseline. And it starts with noticing your breath rate. Like, how are you breathing right now? Are you breathing in your chest or your diaphragm? How's your eyes? Are they blinking a lot, or are you so focused, you're zoomed in, or are you blinking really fast? People who blink a lot, sometimes they're thinking and processing, or these eyes that give away so much. The blink rate. We can all listen to our blink rate and make changes. Some people who are kind of checking out of situations, they're not blinking at all, right? They just go nothing, right? And then we can look at what's going on here. Are we swallowing a lot? Are we doing a lot of throat clearing? How does your voice sound? Is it super high pitched? Is it really low? Is there energy behind it? That's called porosity. And it's how we connect with other people. So interoception, we look at some of these early cues in the top part of our system, and we can make shifts, and we can start changing how we react to things. Maybe my shoulders were up like this the whole time, and I didn't realize that was a defense mechanism because I'm bracing. I don't want anybody to hurt me. Okay, so maybe you're safe right now, and you don't have to brace. And these are in the moment changes we can make ourselves without anybody else kind of directing us, and then we bring softness back into our body. Like taking that breath.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yes, and letting the gut go. Just letting it all. And that just sends a signal to the rest of the body that, hey, everything is okay right now. It's not a fire. We don't have to react to everything as if it's a fire. Even though your phone, your laptop, your boss, your family says everything is a fire. It's not a fire.
Yes, I really love that. I really love how you talked about really that when you take that in, like you said, that word introspection, you start really taking, that introspection of how your body's reacting, and you can really start control how you react to certain situations. Instead, like you said, everything being a fire. And I love something you mentioned earlier. You were talking about, if you don't have that environment, you can find a place like that and build something like that for yourself. But what strategies would you recommend individuals that are seeking to cultivate a presence in their daily lives?
I would say take 2 minutes, put your hand on your chest and a hand on your stomach. If it feels safe, close your eyes and just breathe. Don't do any breath practices. Don't do yoga stuff. Just breathe and see where it's coming from. See if it's in your chest or if it's in your gut. And then if that feels okay and if it feels safe, notice what you notice. Notice what you notice. Just see what happens, and don't react to it. Don't judge it. It's easy for us to get caught up in the judgment, like, oh, I'm too tense, I should relax. No, you don't. Just notice it. take it down as data. Just do a little recognition inside of yourself. And at that 2 minutes, yeah, jot down some notes. And then later, once you get comfortable with that 2 minutes, then maybe next time you add the ice pack to the back of your neck and you lay down and do 2 minutes of just regular breathing. And track your heart rate. Track your brain rate. What's going on up here when you're breathing for 2 minutes? Are you doing your to-do list? Or are you rehashing what you said yesterday and you feel like you maybe shouldn't have? You know what I mean? Just noticing what you notice. That's how we start cultivating presence. And then from there, we take our self-care or self-love away from being a spa day or a girls shopping trip or a guys fishing trip into how do I start cultivating that quiet inside of myself and it feels safe, which is a bigger picture issue. But 2 minutes, sit with yourself and just breathe. For the power bonus, like upgrade or going up to the next level, add the ice packs and see what happens. See what happens when you give your body that chance. You might fall back asleep. So set an alarm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love how you said it could be something that simple. I think many times when we're trying to, cultivate more presence in our lives, we tend to overcomplicate the process. But to hear you say, I just need 2 minutes, if you're really focusing on that breath and then just letting it be. I think many, like for me, I'm like, that's all I need. That's so awesome. It excites me because it realizes that there's a place to start. And I think many of us are overcomplicated, like you said, like I said before, like overcomplicated. And then we end up not taking the action.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that we can all agree that we can find 2 minutes in our day, or we can really slow down. I think our fast-paced life and society, which tells us to go, 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 it's just how simply what you talked about right there can really change our states, but most importantly, how we show up for others.
Absolutely. We do overcomplicate it because also on all of our social media, and we have ads all the time. Here, take this master class, do this, do 25 steps to freedom. And literally, what happens in a lot of my sessions or the sessions with the people I work with is it's so simple, and they get so angry that it's so simple. And I'm like, let's just keep it. Let's not get angry. I'm sorry it was always so complicated before, but it's not complicated. It's having presence and someone later who can be there with you in that presence. And for maybe some people, that's their spirituality, right? So it's not complicated. It's so painfully simple that anyone like me, I mean, in the long run, you're not going to make a lot of money from this, but it's going to give people a lot of freedom. But now let me just say this to clarify. The 2 minutes is the starting ground. That's not, there's a little bit more after that, but you keep building. But we can find 2 minutes. And then you're going to find 4 minutes. And then you're going to decide sometime later that maybe you want a whole hour. And are you sitting there and breathing? Maybe not. Maybe you're now allowed to rest without distraction. Maybe now you're allowed to read a book again.
Mm.
And honestly, our brains need time for no input. And if you're a creative person or you're working on a lot of projects, your brain needs that hour just to sit and be idle. It's not a waste of time. And that is one of the other bigger pieces freediving taught me was, and I've taken that into the new trauma work. You don't have to earn rest anymore. And if you're a high performer, you're doing yourself a disservice by not giving yourself that time. Yeah. You can't perform 24/7.
That's
you can't achieve 24/7. Yeah.
It is such a powerful statement there, because I like you said, we're in this fast-paced world where everybody you almost feel like you're always fighting to go. But I love how you
Mhm.
said right there is like if you're that high performer and you're always on that go, 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 you're doing yourself a disservice because like we all hear about burnout, but we don't really know where it starts from until we're in it and we're like, we're too far gone.
Yes. Burnout is a whole other thing. It really is. Because it steals your vitality away. And burnout is not a mental deficiency. Let me tell you, it is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're overdoing. You're overusing your strengths. You're overperforming. You're overfunctioning. That's what burnout is. You're putting yourself aside to take care of everything else. And if you've had trauma in your past, and if you're a woman, you're more likely and more prone to having burnout show up in your life because of a concept called fawning. And that's when you have to people please to survive. And it's baked into a lot of our cultures. You have to, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, always. To live through your neighborhood, to live through whatever, wherever you lived at in the world or even in the States. And so if you have those experiences in your past, you're more susceptible to burnout as you age, especially. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't realize that. You know how you man, that's a rough one. But I know like
It
many
is.
people listening to this, Elaine. Yes, yes. I know many people that are listening to this. I know what you're thinking. Okay, Elaine, you sold me on free diving, but how can we stay connected with you?
Yes. So, yes, you can come free diving with me anytime you want on my Instagram. It's the underwater therapist, and you never have to hold your breath or get wet. But you can come with me on all of my adventures. I share a lot there about trauma healing, recovery, integration, and oh, by the way, it's just through this lens of free diving. I also have a link tree, which is all the same, the underwater therapist, my website. I have a Medium series I've been writing about trauma and recovery, and what breath holding has taught me and taught a lot of us in the field now as our awareness is expanding, how trauma affects our breathing and how to use that as another step in place. And people can reach out, Elaine at the Underwater Therapist. I do private sessions that are dry. Yeah, but if you're in Hawaii and you want to go diving, absolutely, let me know. And if you want the benefits of breath holding and breath hold diving or free diving without getting wet, we can make that happen too. I do that for a lot of different people. Yeah, and I am a speaker around the world at different conferences as well. So yeah, social media is the way to go, I guess, in this day and age.
Awesome, awesome, Elaine. So hey, you guys, I'm gonna make it super simple for you. I'm gonna put all of Elaine's links under this episode, so you can make sure you contact with her. Make sure you DM her, send her those emails, uh, connect with her, and just thank her for sharing her knowledge today. She has so much key knowledge of really finding that true connection and finding that presence and being, in that moment again. But I'm gonna put all of her her memoir down in there, so you can really keep up to date with her, follow her through her journeys on social media. And so we can dive together. I want to go. I want to meet her in Hawaii.
We will have so much fun, I promise.
Yeah. But Elaine, if you wanted to leave the listeners with a message of encouragement, what would you want to leave them with?
I wish I could download the whole brain right now. I would say, oh my gosh, that I see you and I see your experiences and I see how that they've shaped you and that there's an answer waiting for you, but it's back inside your body. And if you find the space and the time that you can reconnect back with that as well. And you're not alone. And if you decide to up level your self love, your self care, find someone to talk to. If you have a health plan, this is key. If you have a health plan, you should only have to pay a copay for therapy. $20 a session, maybe 30. Do yourself a favor. Yeah. Last night, a client said to me, if I do therapy, does that mean I'm not going to get breast cancer? Because Gabor Mate said if we talk about our trauma, we won't get sick. And I had to laugh because, okay, maybe it won't stop that because that's a genetic thing too. But that's like the right thinking is if I can start talking about me and my life and have space for myself, then maybe I can get back to who I am and find peace in my own presence. That was a long message.
That's
But
awesome.
I think that's the message. Finding peace in your own presence and not having to explain it or perform it for anyone else. Just get to be.
Man, that is so powerful, Elaine. Thank you so much. That is so powerful, you guys. So, like I said, all of her links will be on this episode. Make sure you click onto her link tree. Make sure you connect with her. DM her on Instagram. I'm going to put all of her links under this. So you make sure you just thank her for this episode. Thank her for sharing her knowledge. And make sure that I'm very excited and thankful for you guys listening today. And thank you so much for Elaine for sharing your gift and your knowledge today.
Thank you, sir.
All right, friends.